May 13th, 2022. Halfcast 296. Episode 296. Let's go. Of course, I have a few things to share with you guys. An evening of reflection. Shall we? U.S. charges alleged cocaine kingpin with scamming government out of COVID relief funds. To date, has anyone received a cent of this money that actually needed it? An international crime boss at the top of an organization known for dismembering rivals with chainsaws. Wait, should I be reading this? Is facing federal charges on a rather more mundane allegation, applying for and receiving he qualified a COVID-19 bailout. Prosecutors say he wasn't entitled to. Meleta Miljanic, the Bosnian-born head of Group America, a brutal cocaine trafficking network with alleged links to the Gambino crime family. That's Gotti in them, and at least a dozen murders to his credit, defrauded the Small Business Administration, SBA, out of more than $150,000 in economic relief funds during the early days of the pandemic, according to a felony complaint unsealed Wednesday and reviewed by the Daily Beast. How did we get to where a whole kingpin is telling you that the cocaine industry is good? Cocaine is still running strong, but that COVID money is like low hanging fruit. Miljanic, 62, is a U.S. citizen who lives in Queens, New York, and was once on his way to playing professional soccer for the New York Cosmos before an injury waylaid his dream. According to his lawyer, this is straight out of a movie. A once promising athlete now turns to drug dealing to support his family or whatever. Group America, with operations in some 24 countries, reportedly moves cocaine across the globe by the ton. The crew was formed in the 1970s and is said to have deep ties to various intelligence services as well as the Serbian secret police. How much you want to bet the CIA and FBI is on that list of buddies also? Like his alleged former associate John Gotti, Miljanic has thus far largely avoided serious prison time. Miljanic, also known as Mike and Mike, please call me Mike, as he fires up the chainsaw, right? Served 3 years in federal prison for wire fraud in the 1980s, and in 2012, he was convicted of cocaine trafficking by Italian authorities. This is a large run. 2 years into a 6 year sentence, Miljanic was granted work release and fled to the U.S., where he has lived openly ever since. Work release my ass. I know I'm on my conspiracy nut shit, but the government knew who this guy was and where this guy was for this whole time. At some point, he had to have some useful information for these guys in return for his stay here in America, because it said his group was tied into different intelligence services. On Wednesday, Miljanic, who was already detained on a pending weapons charge involving a gun the FBI found in a convicted felon's nightstand drawer as they were executing a warrant in an unrelated bribery probe, appeared before a judge on Wednesday in White Plains, New York, on one count of wire fraud. The charge against Miljanic stems from an SBA economic injury disaster loan application he submitted in March 2020, states an affidavit attached to the new complaint. In it, Miljanic claimed to run a company called MDP Rebar Solutions LLC that purports to be in the construction business, the affidavit says. However, the feds allege it does not appear to engage in any lawful activity and is instead a shell company through which millions of dollars. What a surprise, are passed to members and associates of organized crime. According to the affidavit, the company employs no one other than Milshak. Various members of his family and the alleged consigliere of the Gambinos identified in the affidavit only as individual one. Wow. at some point, the people who are just handing this money out have to take some type of accountability. They have to be held responsible in some sort of way. Low hanging fruit, baby. Miljanic claimed that MDP Rebar was bringing in more than 2 million in annual revenues, but the feds had Miljanic's phones tapped and subpoenaed his bank records and say it was all a front. Between December 2018 and May 2021, roughly 6.8 million was deposited into MDP Rebar's three separate bank accounts. The affidavit continues. Of that, about 5.7 million came solely from a construction company owned by an alleged Gambino associate. 810,000 came from Miljanic or his family, and 202,000 came from the SBA loan. The SBA is mobbed up now. Based on my review of the MDP Rebar accounts, MDP Rebar does not appear to have paid any expenses that would ordinarily be associated with the rebar company. FBI Task Force Officer William Dion states in the affidavit about 1.7 million of the funds were dispersed to Miljanic and his wife, daughter, and two sons, 1.5 million to a Gambino capo with convictions for racketeering and extortion, 925,000 to an alleged Gambino associate with past wire fraud convictions, 484,000 to they're spreading it out to a Gambino soldier with racketeering and murder convictions, and the remainder to a raft of other shady seeming characters, including $10,000 to the other Gambino capo's girlfriend. According to the feds, Miljanic was cooking the books to make it appear that MDP Rebar was paying out more than it took in to avoid taxes. In one wiretap phone call, Miljanic and a member of the Gambino family discussed dummying up fake expenses for materials and stuff to make it look like you have losses. The affidavit says, "Do what you got to do," Miljanic allegedly replied. An analysis of MDP Rebar's financial records apparently turned up rather obvious anomalies. More than 100 payments for supplies and materials and equipment rentals totaling nearly $900,000 were listed on the company's general ledger, the affidavit explains. But MDP Rebar's bank accounts didn't reflect any payments to the listed supply companies. Instead, the affidavit says the funds went to Miljanic and his wife, who used a portion of the money to pay off $85,000 in American Express bills. So people think the heroes of the law enforcement agencies are the guys out there with the boots on the ground, with the guns and running into the buildings and kicking doors down and stuff. No, the people who are the real heroes are the ones tracking these numbers down where it seems like nothing is going on. It's meticulous work. Miljanic has already pleaded guilty to the existing weapons charge. In a letter to the court last month asking for leniency at a sentencing, Miljanic's wife Rada said that her husband takes his imprisonment very hard, being able to be with his family, especially with grandkids who he loves the most, in the same time during this corona period, which was difficult even for the free people. The witch hunt for him, witch hunt really that goes on is not correct and human because he is a man who is loved and reputable in serving in the New York community, known only for helping people and not threatening. Yeah, right. Oh, come on. In his appearance Wednesday on the wire fraud charge, Miljanic was denied bail by Magistrate Judge Andrew E. Krause. Miljanic is due back in court on June 6th. His attorney, Lawrence R. Di Giansante. Is that a coincidence that he has an Italian lawyer, right? Did not respond to the Daily Beast request for comment. Four pretended to be cops to rob drug dealers. Points for originality. Four men pretended to be cops in Florida. Florida, why am I not surprised? With clothing saying police and cars with lights and sirens to commit a series of robberies, federal prosecutors claim. Was police spelled Poleese? Now the group faced charges and the possibility of life behind bars for robbing drug dealers. It's like frontier justice. On May 13th, prosecutors with the Department of Justice in Florida announced indictments against Reginald Roberts, 22, Nathaniel Keith Carr, 28, Daniel Jackson, 29, and Krishawn De Earl Butler, 22. They face a host of charges, including Hobbs Act robbery. They all face at least 10 years in prison and could be incarcerated for life if convicted. What is the Hobbs Act robbery? Here's one of the more clear definitions that I could find. A conviction under the Hobbs Act requires proof beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant knowingly or willfully committed or attempted or conspired to commit robbery or extortion, and the defendant's conduct affected interstate commerce. Investigators said between December 2020 and April 2021, the four conspired to rob people they suspected of dealing drugs. They participated in at least five armed robberies in Hillsborough, Pasco, Polk, and Lee counties, all in Florida. Three of the robberies resulted in shootings. Federal prosecutors said these people were a problem, an organized problem. They wore black clothing, gloves, and masks, often with law enforcement insignia or vests with sheriff on them, prosecutors said. During some of the robberies where the group pretended to be cops, they also drove cars with blue lights and sirens, according to prosecutors. A con artist for love, a 34-year-old Texas woman conned a high school into believing she was a teen. I don't care what adulting throws at me. The save point that I start back from will not be high school. That does not look like a normal 15-year-old. If somebody told me that was a 15-year-old in school, I would call child services. That is a rough 15. But she wasn't like any other student. No shit. In fact, she was 34 at the time and later convicted as a con artist in a bizarre scheme 8 years ago in which she posed as a teenager and used variations of her given name, Charity Johnson, no relation. According to officials, Johnson attended New Life Christian School in Longview, Texas for 8 months between the years of 2013 and 2014 without anyone realizing her age. Just weird. Like, why? She was finally arrested on May 13th, 2014, after she failed to identify herself and provided false information. She was sentenced to 85 days in jail, but was released after 29 days for good behavior, media reports said. What was she trying to live out some cuckoo prom fantasy or something? After her arrest, investigators discovered Johnson had been pulling the scheme for years around the country. Why? When families became suspicious, she would flee to another small town and work her con all over again. I think that's what we call a serial schooler. Johnson, who was 5 feet tall and weighed around 300 pounds, would dress young how and was often seen wearing Hello Kitty and Minnie Mouse accessories, according to media reports. She also made lots of friends and worked at a Longview McDonald's. I think I understand it a little bit that she might be 34 years old physically, but as far as social maturity goes, she still views herself as being the age of a high school student. According to a BuzzFeed article, Johnson said she did not have school transcripts because she had been homeschooled by a foster family after she was abandoned by a drug addicted mother and incarcerated father. This sounds like right out of Precious. She would reach out to women on Facebook asking for help to get out of a bad situation. According to reports, she would say she was scared and an abused teenager. And after months of communication, she would begin calling the woman mom and ask to visit or move in. Oh, this is scary. Media reports said it's all fun and games until she's walking around your husband with all types of little shorts on and everything. On Mother's Day 2014, a Dallas woman who had been helping Johnson grew suspicious. Reports said Johnson would skirt around questions about her age and past. After weeks of communication, like that only goes so far. After a while, you're going to have to open up and tell somebody what the hell is going on with you. Johnson visited the woman with a homemade Mother's Day card. The woman, however, noticed strands of gray in Johnson's hair, and of her ever-changing personality quirks that cracked the illusion that she was a 15-year-old girl. Media reports said the woman contacted the family Johnson had been staying with to relay her suspicions. The woman also spoke to Johnson's manager, who confirmed that she was born in 1979. She older than me, which would mean that she would be turning 35 in 2014, according to media reports. The woman eventually called police. Get this fucking lady. The woman told BuzzFeed she believed Johnson was not a con artist for money, but was a con artist for love. Aww. Now lock her ass up. According to media reports, her friends and mentors at the Longview School mourn the loss of Sharita Stevens after her arrest. This could possibly be a situation where the last time someone felt socially accepted was during their high school years. So they feel the need to keep recreating that period in time. So they keep feeling socially accepted rather than just maturing socially and learning how to adult, basically. Boyfriend accused of targeting ex's family with 11 drive-by shootings in Phoenix. Can you imagine not being able to have no family gatherings because one person picked the wrong boyfriend? Phoenix police have arrested a suspect accused of committing a series of drive-by shootings that targeted relatives of the suspect's former romantic partner. You never wanted to see us together. Manuel Sierra, 24, was taken into custody Wednesday on suspicion of executing at least 11 drive-by shootings over the last 6 months throughout the Phoenix area. The first shooting was reported last New Year's Eve near 27th Avenue and Baseline Road after the suspect allegedly fired gunshots at a home and two vehicles. At some point, you got to put the gun down and realize the relationship is over, buddy. Phoenix police said it appeared members of this extended family were specifically targeted by Sierra because of their relation to the suspect's former romantic partner. They probably knew he was trouble and was trying to get her to leave him. No injuries were reported in any of the drive-by shootings. He was just trying to get her attention. How romantic. In at least half the shootings, the targeted homes were occupied when shots were fired. Police said Sierra was booked into the Maricopa County Jail on 18 felony charges. The man loves hard. You can't fault him for that. Fun show. Fun show. Fun show. That being said, I'm going to wrap this one up, but I'll be sure to talk to you guys very, very soon. Adios.